Hey guys, Randomosity here, and on this super hot day, we thought we'd show you how to make a super simple shave horse. Hope you enjoy the video. Okay guys, I'm going to be showing you the parts you're going to need for the super simple shave horse. Thank you. Here's all the materials. We're going to start with the foot. Let's just go with there, you know. You need a 20-inch 2x2 for your foot. You need one 10-inch 2x4, two 27-inch 2x4s, and one 30-inch 2x6. Now here we have a block. This is a 4x4 block, and it is 5.5 inches square to long. Square is this flat side to the tip of the angle. And this will be cut at a 10-degree angle. We move on here, we have a 52-inch 2x8. And we need one of those. We need two 2x4s with a 45-degree angle, opposing angles on either end. Cut this way. Measuring 16 inches long to long. That's tip of the angle to tip of the angle. And we need two 2x4s at 12 7/8 inches long to long, with the angle going this way at 15 degrees. Now, you can see the difference here. This one's angled this way, and this one's angled this way. So, you don't want to make the mistake there. If you do, it's not the biggest thing, because most of this you can find in the scrap anyway. And you'll need two 2x4s. Sorry about that. Four 2x4s at 20 inches short to long, tip to non-tip. And then you'll need one hinge, pretty decent hinge, and two really big screws. These are 4-inch long, but they're a real heavy shank here, and it's 5/16 inch drive you'll need for that. Some 3.5 inch screws for attaching all the pieces together. Right here I'm using star bits because they are the least likely to strip out. Phillips and flats, I just forget those. They're from the Stone Age. And then some short screws. I'm using 1.5 inch screws here to hook the hinges on. The hinge. And you can use whatever you want for those. They don't have to be 1.5 inches long. They can just be regular short hinge screws if you buy a hinge that has the screws. Now, you'll need a tape measure and a good pencil, maybe a speed square, depending on what you're cutting it with. If you're using a chop saw to do your angles, you won't need the speed square because it'll do that all on its own. And a good screw gun. Now, we're hoping this is going to do the job. The bigger the screw gun, the better. Let's move right on to putting this thing together. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is make a leg set. So we start out, we already have one here made, as you can see. We'll start out with our two 20-inch pieces, and we'll measure up from the bottom of them. You gotta make sure tips are pointing out like this so it'll be flat on the floor. and you measure up from the long point up 8.5 inches from the long point, right like that. You do that on both of them. Then you take your 12 7/8 inch piece with the 15-degree angle on them, and you line it up right with that line you've made there. Then we'll put 2 screws in each joint. You can set it up like that, see if it's pretty lined up with the floor, and you don't want them to be too out of whack. You want them to be nice and lined up. Okay, we're going to move right on to putting the main board right on our legs. So you just line the leg set right up with the end of it. Now, as you can see here, this leg is a little narrower, the set, than the board. That's no big deal. You just split the difference here, so they're both about equal. Then we'll put 2 screws in on each joint. So we'll speed up and put the rest of these screws in and show you the next piece that's going to be added to this. Next thing you want to do is get your short screws, and we're going to add the hinge to our main frame here. So you're going to take the hinge and you'll fold it. As you can see on the hinge here, one direction it only goes to a 90, and the other direction it'll fold flat back on itself. So you want to be putting it this direction right on your main frame, right on the end. Now, you can measure it and center it if you want with a tape measure, but there's no need for that. It's not precise. I would just eyeball it, center it out on your board that way. You do not want to strip your screws out if at all possible, because that'd make it more likely for your work board to fall off, which is this 2x6 piece, your 30-inch 2x6. So then you put this here and just center it right on the main frame, and hold it like this so it lines up with the hinge good. Once you got one screw in there, you're set. You don't have to hold it. Just wicked handy. Okay, now you're going to see where this 5.5 inch 4x4 comes into play here. You slip it right under here, and we only have a couple more things to do. And we're going to go get a bit. This 4x4 adjusts the height of this, which is your working base here, where you have your piece of wood that you're shaving on. And so you can move it up or down to adjust if you're working with a thinner piece in between your clamp or not. So I'm going to get a bit for these screws and a drill bit to drill our holes for our clamp, and we'll get right back. Okay, I just got the drill bit to drill the holes we need, and the 5/16 driver bit for these big screws. And next thing we're going to do is mark where those need to go. So you're going to come in right here from this end of the bench 20 inches. And then you just mark it in the center. Now you're going to repeat that on the next side. And that's where your big screws you're going to hit for the pivot on the clamp part. Next we go over to our 2x4s that we're going to be using for the sides of the clamp, and you measure down 11.5 inches, and we will make we would drill the holes there for the screws to go through. Want to center them precisely, just like that. Now, we have a bit here that's going to fit the screws with some room, because you want the screws to be screwed into the main frame, and you do not want them to be catching on this board, because it could loosen the screws, and you want to be able to move easily. So we'll just drill these right through. Now, I start by putting this piece on the side first, because it is going to make it easier to be able to line up the screw with our mark on the main frame. So you get the screw to just poke through like that. And then you come and you line it right up with the X where you marked it at 20 inches. You tighten it in until it moves freely, and repeat on the other side. The 11.5 inches side is on the upward side of it. So you can tell that one's a little tough. Now we go back to our star head bit, and it is time to attach the top clamp board. And this you'll be fastening with 2 screws on either side, like every other joint. You could nail this together, but it lasts better being screwed, and it's easier to screw it, because it'd be a little bit more difficult to nail these pieces, especially with their movability, you know. Okay, now what you want to do is you want to completely flip the bench over on top of itself, because the next thing we're going to install is the foot, which is the 20-inch 2x2. Now, you come in 5 inches on either end and make a mark, and that'll be to the edge of your 2x4, the outer edge. And here, as you can see, I got my screws pre-started for ease of installing. Okay, we only have 2 pieces left to install on here, which is the 2 braces, the most important part. Or not. Doesn't really matter. Okay. Now, this is a very important part. When you're screwing these in here, you're going to screw it through the end into here with 2. And then now for the important part. These screws you want to angle very good in like this, because you do not want to be poking yourself when you sit down on this. It's a real rude awakening. So you angle them in like right under here, because if they're not catching a lot of wood here, it's not that big of a deal. This just needs to keep this from moving back and forth. It's not a super structure piece. There you have it. That's how to make the super simple shave horse. So if you have enjoyed this video, thumbs up. If you want to see more like this. If you don't want to see more along this line, thumbs down. And subscribe, comment. We always like to hear what you think of the video and how we can improve. And follow on Twitter. And until next time, keep rolling with the random.